Chris Shandeck, CYInterview, covering Las Vegas and the world. If you have not already, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel to keep up with everything we have going on here on CYInterview. We greatly appreciate your support. Tonight, the Florida Panthers won their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. The Florida Panthers, after being up 3-0 in a best-of-7 series, held off the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7 for a 2-1 victory. The win gives the Florida Panthers, again, its first Stanley Cup title ever, and the city of South Florida a chance to cheer on another championship, which is not a common thing in recent decades in the city of South Florida, aside from the Miami Heat. Also, of course, the Miami Marlins won in 2003. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. It's well-deserved. After being the runners-up last year, the Florida Panthers lost to the own hometown team, Las Vegas Golden Knights, in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. So they are now the champions this year after being the runners-up last year. So I just want to emphasize a couple of things here in this regard. This has been a long time coming for the Florida Panthers. There was a period between 2000 to 2010 where the team didn't even go to the playoffs. There was not one playoff berth. There was not one Stanley Cup playoffs series. So there were a lot of challenges for the Florida Panthers between the early 2000s to 2010, and only until really 2019 did the playoffs and the opportunities to go to the playoffs start happening for the Florida Panthers every single year, which finally led to them winning the Stanley Cup this year. So, you can look back on the franchise, which started in 1993, and the Florida Panthers, in their third year, go to the Stanley Cup Finals after beating the Boston Bruins, Philadelphia Flyers, and Pittsburgh Penguins to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. Everyone probably thought the Panthers were going to be more competitive, and they got swept in 4 games by the Colorado Avalanche. So, looking back on it, early success for the Panthers, and then had to wait, 27 years, after 27 years after getting to their first Stanley Cup, they finally get to their third Stanley Cup final, and then they finally end up winning it. And that's basically what we're looking at today. To recap, it's just one of those things where, there's a lot of professional sports franchises that don't have a lot of championship history. 3 conference championships for the Panthers, but not many playoff series wins again before, 2019. And it just goes to show you that, this is why you play the games. You find the right kind of management and staff to finally bring in the right players and personnel, and anything can happen. And the Florida Panthers are reigning supreme this year. It'll be interesting to see, switching over to Las Vegas, what the Las Vegas Golden Knights are able to do next year. They did make the playoffs this year, but it will be interesting to see, who they select in the upcoming NHL draft and the other franchises in the National Hockey League. Congratulations are in order again to the Florida Panthers. Only until, a couple of years ago did they really become competitive every year and be an ongoing playoff team. And they, after being the runners-up last year and losing to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they now are the Stanley Cup champions. So congratulations to the Florida Panthers on winning that in 7 games. And, had they not beat the Edmonton Oilers tonight, it would have been the greatest, I don't know if we would call it the greatest choke job, but it would have been one of them, had they been up 3-0 in this series. And not being able to win 1 in 4 to win the Stanley Cup would have been pretty amazing, unbelievable, surprising to a lot of people. I think after the first 3 games, everybody had the Edmonton Oilers written off. They didn't think that they were going to probably have a Game 7. And the fact that the Oilers were able to get all the way to Game 7 was a pretty incredible feat on their own part. But they fell up short. It's hard to win 4 games in a row in a series when you're down 3-0 in a best-of-7. So the Florida Panthers did find a way to hold off the Edmonton Oilers in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals down in South Florida by a final score of 2-1. A team with not much playoff history, a team with not much winning success in its time. People can go back to the era of John Van Beesbrook as the goalie, and then of course the era of Pavel Bure, in the 2000s, and a lot has changed since then. And the Panthers were finally able to put it together and find a way to become the Stanley Cup champions for this year. I'm Christian Nick for CYInterview. If you're not already, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with everything you have going on in Las Vegas and beyond, and I'll see you in the next video.